Welcome back to Arguing Agile. Since I am a product manager, I want to have a podcast specifically on this article. It's from 2018. It's quite old, but also it's not that old. And it's titled, "Do Infrastructure Teams Need Product Management?" I'll link the article, but while we're talking about it, I'm going to read through the article. It says, many infrastructure development teams don't have a product manager or have a fractional product owner / analyst working primarily on detailed technical requirements. That forces an architect or senior developer to manage a range of responsibilities they are not interested in and perhaps not qualified to handle, sorting conflicting business priorities, internally, quote, selling the value of architecture and specific improvements, tying technical decisions to quantitative business metrics, lobbying for increased staffing versus other teams, motivating developers with real-world examples of how their work matters to end users. Said another way, great development teams want to work on great technical problems, but these never arrive gift-wrapped or fully defined or conflict-free with clearly articulated business value. So, 2 observations. Observation number 1, seasoned, motivated development teams are the scarcest commodity in the universe. Let's keep them focused on what they do best. And product managers and development teams solve different problems. We should not force developers to be product managers or vice versa. Initial take, go.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So first of all, this is so bipolar, right? First of all, seasoned, motivated development teams, the scarcest commodity in the universe. Let them keep focused on what they do best. Okay. All right. So, those people that are like overseeing teams that are almost circling the drain, PMO, you know who you are. Okay, you might agree. But product managers and dev teams solve different problems. Think about that for a second. Product managers and development teams solve different problems. It's like saying people that are putting up the scaffolding on your home, putting in one breeze block over another and putting some, filling in between, are solving a different problem than your builder or your architect or your whatever, plumber. You're moving into a home. You want all of it to work together. When you move in, you don't want just the building infrastructure to be solid, and then when you flip the light switch on, there's no light because the electricians, they're not part of it. I see that here. We should not force developers to be product managers or vice versa. My biggest issue is when they say great development teams want to work on great technical problems. That is a loaded statement. I think not only do I not agree with it, I would reframe that. Great development teams need to work on solving great business problems, because technical problems, okay, you can solve them, right? You can do all of the technical work and you might get paid for a little while, but that's not sustainable. It's the business. What need are you solving?
I don't know if I think I disagree.
Okay. This is good because we're arguing Agile.
Let's talk through the first statement, because you zipped over the first statement. Seasoned, motivated, which is not, honestly, it's not very much of a statement that I'm going to try to defend here, but let me try to jump in front of this moving train. Seasoned, motivated development teams are the scarcest commodity in the universe. Let's keep them focused on what they do best. The subtext of that one, where I can get on board not agreeing, is let's keep these developers' hands on keyboard. Like the way that I see this actualized in the universe in my career, I don't agree with that. Meaning, why do I need to talk to customers? Why do I need to have all of my developers in the demo? Why don't I just have my lead developer do it? Or why don't I have my QA people do it? Because it's not that important, right?
Yeah.
Like that sentiment out of this is the wrong sentiment. Now, what I think the author here, and we can get through the rest of the article to confirm this, but what I think the author here is trying to say is development teams that are tuned into business problems and development teams that work well together, meaning they've been around a while and they understand how to consider the customer first, as opposed to whatever other things. That is a rare occurrence in the wild. I think that's where he's going with this.
I agree, but why do you think that is? I know where you're going, right? It's that customer centricity. We can come up with the best widget ever on the planet, but is it really needed by anybody? Who prizes that?
See, that is an interesting question, is why is it so scarce? I mean, many factors. Well, number one, first of all, consider every team that is not an Agile team, meaning they're put together around a strong personality and they stay together and they stay working as long as that strong personality stays there, kind of sheltering them from the worst of the organization and that kind of stuff. And then when that person goes away, then the team starts degrading as demands of the business. Culture, number one, would never let a seasoned, motivated development team form in the first place. So number one, your culture has to be right. Number two, the right people have to be, because you could have the right culture and the wrong people leading your development teams, and they'll still sabotage this. And then your company might have the right culture, you might have the right people, but you do projects, so you're constantly disbanding teams, you're constantly reforming teams, or maybe you're all in on this whole fluid team concept that I just can't understand because I have a little tiny brain and I just can't, my brain can't get it. Of you're constantly shuffling people between teams, so nobody ever gets working with different people, so you never get that cohesion. There could be a million reasons for this first one of why you never at your organization get a single seasoned, motivated development team.
I had this discussion today. What is that? What is the culture? Culture for me is a byproduct of four things. Org culture is a byproduct of the people. The organization is nothing if it's not for the people. The processes that those people have put in place. Those people or people above or before them. There's these processes that you have to follow, the policies, right? So that's the third one. And then the other one is, for me, for organizational culture, is really talking about the one thing that I find it very, very difficult to quantify, which is the other P, which is the politics. Every organization has politics. Yeah. If you think your organization doesn't have politics, you're kidding yourself. Or you're just too naive. Maybe this is your first job. But you'll learn, right? You just dust yourself off and you'll learn. So those are the four factors that I think form an org culture. Now that you know what those factors are, right? Think about what you can influence. Can you influence all of them? So you can influence culture in its totality. If you can, let us know, because I'd love to learn about that. Mm-hmm. I found that most people cannot influence much more than just the process side. Especially, it doesn't really matter, actually. I was going to say, especially if you're from the process side of the equation, the Scrum Masters of the world, right? Or Agile coach, or whatever. Even if you're product, you're really not influencing the other three things, right? You're only talking about the process. We can deliver this product in the context of this time frame, in the context of who the customer, the target audience is, right? And then what does it mean for us to meet that versus not meet that? You can talk about that, right? That's about it. That's the extent of it. So large companies that are out there, their org culture has not remained static, right? I'm going to repeat that for those of you in the back of the room. The culture of an org is not a static thing. It morphs over time. You come in at a certain point in that fabric and you go, yeah, I understand it, but it changes. Yeah. So by the time you've had long enough to make a difference, guess what? You're not making a difference on what you thought you were making a difference on. It's changed. Yeah. Right? A couple of examples, just because I'm kind of on this rant. Who would have thunk it 20 years ago that you would have things like self-driving cars, Teslas, or Uber, Grubhub? People would actually bring food to you when you can just demand it, right? It didn't exist. You actually still had to go out and you could put orders in, sure. Yeah, it wasn't an app, it was a phone call, but you had to go get it. Yeah. Now they deliver it to your home. Oh, guess what? If it's not there within a certain time frame, they comp it. It's free. Domino's does that. 30 minutes or it's free. So all of that to say, the landscape is changing. The org culture goes along with that. And if you're not keeping pace with that, I pity the fool, as the, what was it, 18?
Mr. T.
18, Mr. T, that's right. He wouldn't fly, but he pitied the fool.
What about this? Oh, he flew.
Under protest.
Just had to stab him in the neck. That's right. What about the product managers and development teams solve different problems? Let's argue on that one. Like the where he's probably coming from. Again, I can't see the underlying tweets because apparently X is not going to give it to me. We don't have time for these zingers. Like we're trying to move. I think what the implication here is product managers solve the what and why. Development teams solve the how. He's drawing a delineation between product management, not product owner, product management, and the development teams. I think that's where he's going with this statement.
He is, clearly, right? But I actually vehemently disagree with this, because at the end of the day, talk to your customer and say, we're solving the what with this and the how with this. Ain't gonna fly. They want a solution for what their need is, right? So get it together. right? They don't care the what, the how, and they tell you what their need is.
I understand what you're saying, but I put that back on product management. If you have a product manager who thinks in terms of solutions, for example, they don't think in terms of problems, right, and they bring the development team constantly, I need you to build this solution or this solution. Maybe it's not fair to pin it on the product manager. I kind of think it is, but maybe it's not fair to pin it on the product manager. Maybe it's your salespeople who are demanding the solution and the product manager is just being a pass-through to the development team. I've certainly seen that many times, but also there is fault with the product manager in that instance because they are the gatekeeper to the business, back to the development team. In that, I understand what you're saying, but I'm casting fault on multiple people in this. I'm writing tickets left and right in this equation.
Jira is full now, so I know it definitely.
I'm writing parking tickets. I'm towing cars right now.
I agree. I agree. First of all, that your assertion about the product managers. So the thing about this is the product managers are doing what they think is right, but how do they know what's right? Bring the customer in. Bring them in to the discussion and say, what are we trying to solve for you, right? I'm a product person. I can talk about the attributes, the features, blah, blah, blah of a product, right? And the delivery time frame, whatever you want to talk about. Here are the development team. They can talk about the how, but chances are you don't really care about the how.
I understand where you're going, but the way I interpret his example, I could read the very next. I could read the funny thing is I could read the very next paragraph, and his very next paragraph might completely undermine what I'm about to say. But what I think he's saying is product managers, the developer's job. If you walk over to the developer and you say, I listened to the Lenny's podcast recently, and he had somebody on who said, I asked 3 people on the development team what they were doing this sprint, and one of them told me, I'm putting bricks into this wall, and the other one told me I'm building a wall, and the last one told me I'm building a church or a cathedral or something like that. And you ask the product manager and you say, what is your team doing this sprint? And the product manager says, we're building this giant cathedral. So obviously everyone has a different picture of the vision, the end vision that the whole team is driving to, and you need to drive towards that vision. That's your job. Your job is leading the team towards that vision. The team's job is to take it one brick at a time to build a cathedral and solve the problems as they're putting the bricks down. Oh crap, how do I put a brick where a window is supposed to be? Where do I even get windows from? Who do I buy windows from? The development team's job is to build a cathedral, but it's to do it brick by brick. The job they're doing is much more granular than the product manager in this aspect. Now, if you're gonna crowbar product manager, product owner apart, then there might be a little more quibbling in here, a bit more bones of contention.
Smaller. I agree with what you said. However, look at that first one, right?
The product managers, developers solve different problems.
Developers, think about their skill sets. They're wired to solve the technical issues, right? They're wired to look at something as a problem statement and come up with what they believe is a solution statement. That's how they're wired. How do I know? I used to be a developer, right? So I have put up hello world in more languages than most people have. Here's what I'll tell you. Did I know why I'm putting on hello world? No, because that's what you do, right? Yeah. So I know it's trivial, but it's an example. As a developer, you're focused on the technical solution to meet a need that is a technical need. As a product person, you have to have the purview of why that technical need exists in the bigger picture, right? And the bigger picture isn't just about your provider org. It's about the consuming org, your customers, right? Sure. Why do they need what they need? But then also on the side, almost like a margin, on a notebook. If you know what the customer needs, why are they coming to you? They have sources. They have alternatives, right? Why are they coming to you?
He says motivated development teams are the scarcest commodity in the universe. Between that and saying motivated development teams are a completely renewable resource, where are you in that scale?
I'll tell you exactly where he's coming from, that I believe he's coming from, and then I'll tell you where I'm coming from. He's saying motivated development teams are the scarcest resources, meaning it's very hard to find technical people that understand the why behind what they're doing.
Oh, okay. I'm with you on that.
That's what he's saying.
I'm with you on that.
There are a lot of technical people that know how to do things, right? They can give you 10 different ways to do something. But why?
Yeah.
So that's great. But that's where that first point stops. For me, where it leaves off is What are we trying to solve? Right? And that's where product comes
Yeah.
in. You could do all of these things. You come with the best toasters ever, right? But is there a need for that? Because your toaster takes 8 minutes to
I love
toast a
toast.
slice of bread, man.
I do love toast.
I do. Toast is great. So maybe there is no market for something that takes 18 minutes to slice, a slice of toast that they can make out of whatever. You could put avocado on it and it makes avocado toast. Now, you could say, oh, there's added value there. So anyway, that's really what I think he's arguing about.
All right.
But product and dev teams are not two different sides of two different coins.
All right, let's move on to the next part of his article. He says, imagine that I don't know if this is going to be relevant, but I'm going to read it for the purposes of the podcast. And if I cut it out, then I cut it out. Imagine that we're at a medium/large e-commerce company with 90 plus developers and mission critical back-end infrastructure. There's a lot of hyphens in that sentence. We formed a dedicated infrastructure development team to look after buyer profiles such as name, address, PII, order history, payment information, marketing preferences, and buyer analytics such as transaction logging. I almost said lodging. Transaction lodging. I don't know why that's so funny. Engagement stats, demographics, lifetime value, campaign response rates, etc. The team's overall goal is to streamline and standardize buyer information, especially for scalability and consistent reporting and privacy management. Our direct customers, I don't know why that's in quotes, are other product development groups responsible for shopping carts, order statuses. Order status? Shouldn't that be statuses?
It should be.
Anyway, recommendation engines, marketing campaigns, and legal compliance. Inevitably, most of the following will arise. Now, I'm not going to read every single one of these, but he's saying, so we're an infrastructure team taking care of the back end of all this, which I would argue that some of this is not really back end work. However, I understand what he's saying. We're a back end platform team. We're just building the framework that the other teams hook into.
Right.
And he says some of the conflicts will be, some of the following will arise. And those are conflicts among internal consuming groups about priorities, where the infrastructure boundaries are, like who makes REST services. You could also say environments, stuff like that, right?
Sure.
What are common end users /need/want. Executive interrupts what executives think are important. Alignment on broader strategy. Context and economic analysis, supporting multi-team initiatives. Let me start back from the top of the list of what he says are problems. Conflicts among internal consuming groups. So if you're providing a platform to a community of developers, obviously that community of developers will look at what they're doing from your platform and demand different things and all say their priority one. So there's some stakeholder management in here. I want to really move quickly over this one because this is the basics. Like someone's going to have to do stakeholder management. If you don't have the point of his article is if you don't have a product manager, now your development lead, development team, whatever, is going to have to sort of invent a system. Right. Some of it come up with some kind of democratized process, ask who they work for. They're going to have a proxy for a product manager and their normal processes to do prioritization. That's what his first bullet point's about.
No doubt. And so he's talking about internal customers here, right?
Yeah.
That's what I see here. Internal customers, okay, fine. You're going to have, and he says that in his first bullet point, conflicts among internal consuming groups, right? At the end of the day, who's paying for your product, your outcomes? Who's paying for that? The internal people that are just doing cross charges and all that stuff. Okay. Or is it the actual end customer? If it's the end customer, it doesn't matter how many people it touches before it gets to them, right? So decide that first, and then move from there. So that first bullet for me is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Conflict among internal consuming groups. You could have 5, you could have 50, but who's paying for it?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
To the second one.
So his second one is, where is the boundary of the infrastructure? So what do you own and what everyone else owns? Like I was in a program one time where everybody contributed API endpoints, and boy, it was chaos. It was chaos because API endpoints themselves don't talk to other API endpoints. You have to have services that do that or programs that do that. But if you want to do something that another API endpoint does already, but you just want to extend it a little bit, like, are you allowed to do that on somebody else's code, or should you just go to that team and ask for something on their roadmap? Like, there's all kinds of the borders are very murky in a shared, basically a shared one backlog, one product, multiple teams.
Yep.
That basically, if you can solve multiple teams in one backlog, you can solve this problem of not knowing where the boundaries are.
I think the bottom line, I agree, right? What you're just saying. The bottom line of all this is communicate with the other team and say, here's what we're doing. So to the point about where's the infrastructure boundary, we're delivering this. What are you doing? Oh, I see there's a gap here. Either you address it, we address it, or we jointly address it.
The other thing, I agree with everything you're saying, but
Right.
I will tell you, not having clear metrics makes this a lot murkier. When you don't, and not clear metrics, and also the other thing I've dealt with on development teams I've been part of is certain members of the team have access to all the logs, metrics, performance monitoring, and stuff like that, and certain members do not.
Yes.
So it's very difficult to understand where the delineation, where the edge of the system is when you can't see in all the logs. I don't know why anyone would try to hide the infrastructure from you, other than the fact of like maybe they're playing some games with. Yeah, right. They're trying to hide some stuff on purpose. Right.
Yeah. So there's two parts of the play in the games piece, right? One is pride. This is what we did.
Sure.
It's ours.
Sure.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other part is, okay, if we reveal what we're doing, right, then it's going to reveal our vulnerabilities, and we don't want to do that, right? So that's the
been there.
Shame game.
Yeah,
thing,
been there,
right?
done
it's
that.
like, we'll be ashamed if we just. So all of this
and nothing's going to improve.
Is going to improve. This is where the us and themism kicks in, right? So be wary.
So his next category in here is what our common end users need / want versus how each application team interprets their users' needs. So an example he gives is the shopping cart team wants fewer number of required fields for payment to lead to faster checkout, while the recommendation team wants multiple payment options per purchase. This is kind of
I see this as a weakness in the product side of the organization.
He even says at the end of this, politics as architecture points out.
This really doesn't. Architecture is the tail wagging the politics at the end of the day.
I also don't think of this as a platform. I don't think this is platform. Like I think of platform team, but like the title of the article here that we're talking about is, do infrastructure teams need product management? I don't think of, I need more items in my cart, or I need my cart to handle this, or I need a fast checkout button. I don't think of this as the infrastructure of the website.
I think slivers of value. Right?
I think of this as like there should be a team developing this kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
So maybe this is not a great example, but the point, I think the point of this item is, if what I think would be a good one, like an NFR that could be a good example of this, is when I hit the checkout button after everything's been purchased, I don't want the spinner to spin for 5 seconds. Right now, we've timed it in production, and we know it spins for 5 seconds. I want that button to be nearly instant. I don't want there to be any spin time. Maybe a half a second is appropriate of spin time, and that's it. And now I'm going to my platform team saying, your platform processing is too slow. You need to drop everything you're doing and make this the highest priority in your platform of making the processing faster. And then you might take that as an infrastructure team and say, well, we integrate with these other vendors and we're processing your payment. We're doing all this in one step. And yes, we could split it up, but then we're going to have to push things all onto everybody else's roadmap to help us refactor. And it's huge to refactor. I did this in the world of mobile apps. Yep. It's huge to try to get that number down from 3 seconds to 1 second. It seems trivial.
That's massive.
But
no, it's not
ends
trivial.
Up being massive.
No. So from 20 to 3 seconds is easier than 3 to 1 second.
Right, yeah, right, yeah.
Like an
I
order
agree
of
with that,
magnitude. So one of the things that I know he ends with, this smells as much like politics as architecture. One of the things that I think we have to really kind of bear in mind here is...
I agree what he said. Where he says it smells like politics over architecture. I do agree with that, but what's the difference between some VP saying this process takes too long and you doing a poll and the majority of your users coming back and saying this process takes too long? Sometimes, especially with A to B tests, like A/B tests, sometimes I think like I don't necessarily need to run a test if my product intuition is already telling me there's a problem, and I can investigate metrics to see that the majority of users, between the time they click that button and between the time that the transaction says successful in the database, there is a 3 to 5 second gap. So I can use those metrics just to say, generally, users have to wait 3 to 5 seconds. And is 3 to 5 seconds too much for a general user? Now I've got a good question I can go investigate, and I can survey, and I can do some tests. That is true. However, if we have other things that we're trying to do that are based on processing time, for this example, Is it politics? Maybe it is. Maybe it's completely legitimate to say, Brian, it's just politics. So many executives, so many different departments, so many different teams are saying they perceive a problem, so you must fix a problem because of the perception. Listen, that might be true that it is politics that led us to this fix. That doesn't mean, I'm about to say something I don't believe in my technical heart of hearts, but I certainly believe in my product management heart of hearts. The perception becoming reality and forcing you to fix it, that is a real problem at that point. Once your perception sets into reality, politics aside, it doesn't matter if it's politics or not. Now you have to fix it.
100%, right? So maybe even more. So customers vote it could be more, could be thousands. Customers vote with their dollars. Engage a subset of your customers, you know how to pick the ones that you want, as a pilot group.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And then get them, not only just at the end of it saying, well, here's what we delivered and go test this stuff out.
Yeah.
Get them in ahead of time and say, we're planning this, right? Here's what we're planning to achieve. These are the SLAs, SLRs, whatever, that we're planning to meet.
Yep.
Are they good enough for you? Guess what? If they're not, they'll tell you.
You could survey your customers. You could do something in app.
You could do something in app.
In the scenario I just described, which was a place that I actually worked. You could tell the time between the submit in the mobile app, the submission of the submission of the thing and the processing of the thing of the transaction. You could tell the difference. So you could pull in SQL every single transaction. So you can see outliers. You could throw out, if you saw like one transaction took 3 minutes, you could be like, whoa, something really wrong. What happened there?
Their connection stopped and then reestablished.
Right, exactly. Maybe they went out of Wi-Fi and came back in. Let me throw that out. So you can throw out outliers so that you can do some stuff in the metrics. However, you should be able to get real data on this before you let politics aside. You might have to respond to politics. This might take away from this discussion before we move in, because again, we dwelled on this too long.
Yep.
Politics will become a real thing and force your hand in prioritization. That is 100% true. No problem with that. You really shouldn't be too aggravated with that. That just means you couldn't get ahead of it fast enough.
Right. And expect that it's going to happen. Don't be surprised when it happens, because it's a given.
But that is not an excuse to not also walk through the normal process of having your metrics on the issue. Get your metrics. If you don't have in-app metrics, ask your developers, prioritize it. Get the metrics, let them help you. It'd be better if you can pull them yourself, obviously, then you don't have to impact the development team. But that's I feel you can get it ahead of this one if you got some metrics on your side. All right, Executive interrupts. Quite honestly, executive interrupts kind of goes along with the previous one that we kind of talked about. But also, executive interrupts is also the sales coming to you and being like, hey, this customer is going to renew if we just add this one new feature, or this customer will sign the contract if we add this. That's this too. He says, what if we use machine learning to suggest payment methods based on ship to address, right? I mean, it's very meta. Like I'd be amazed if an executive actually came to me and said, well, but here's the reality of what an executive would come to you with this executive interrupt. Well, every other competitor has AI in their solutions. How come we aren't doing anything with AI?
Right. Or the other side of it, which I like to call ego stroking. They will come to your tech lead and say, hey, awesome job the last 15 sprints or whatever it is, right? So to your point, our competitors are doing this. I know you guys can do better. I know you have it in. You guys are so smart, right? You can do this in 2 sprints. I know you can, right? Make it happen. And then they walk away.
That's true, yeah.
Right? I have seen this personally, believe it or not, way too often, right? That this is when good tech leads come to you and say, what just happened here? Our whole world got changed. Right? Bad tech leads on the other hand go, yes, sir. Would you be wanting to shine your shoes too?
Well, they can't. I mean, honestly, they can't help themselves, because they feel that's the way that they got there. So they're not gonna, they're not gonna go against the company. But I remember at a company I was at one time pointing out the dips and spikes in velocity, and I had been with the company for long enough to track the major things that happened. I was a product manager at the company. I was not a scrum master. I was a product manager at the company. And each sprint, I wrote down what the sprint goal was, whether the company or whether the team did or did not accomplish the sprint goal. And also, I wrote down major things that were happening in the company during the sprint. So I wrote down like, this customer complained a lot, or this executive was demanding this feature or whatever. It was almost like things that we were doing, things that were taking a lot of refinement time while the sprint was also going on. It was like notes of what was happening in the environment during the sprint. And I remember showing it to the CEO one time when we did a program retrospective, because the company wasn't that big. We did a program retrospective with the senior leadership team and reps from the development teams. So it was like a leadership plus development retrospective. And one of the things I pointed out in the retrospective was, I said, I have notes of where you guys have pushed the team in the last quarter. And it was funny because when they pushed the team, the velocity went up. And the velocity going up, like there was no, what the team was doing was working extra hours and working nights and weekends, that kind of stuff. Because we had also had access to the system where the team logged their hours. Yeah. Okay. We had full transparency in that team, which is actually good because I could show them the velocity went up, not because the team was overinflating, but because the team was working 60 hours instead of 42 or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
And I showed them, this is where you push the team and this is where they delivered and this is the next sprint. And because there was dips and spikes in the velocity.
Always, right?
Dips and spikes. Yeah. And what would happen is the dips would immediately follow the spikes. And I told the executives, I said, you understand following this data where like correlation is not causation. Is that the thing? Correlation is not causation?
Yeah,
causation. Yeah. I was like, except in this case, it completely is. I was this is where you push the team and they worked extra. And this next sprint after that, when the deadline was over, is where they all were burnt out and had to pull it back to return to their baseline. And these next two sprints after that was the baseline where if you actually want to know how long it's going to take, that's what you should do. So I was like, you should either start understanding how baselines work and start planning to the baseline. So when you know something big's coming up, bring it up 2-3 sprints ahead of time so the team can start baking it into the work and deliver it rather than stressing the team out and then having to suffer for a sprint and a half after that while your velocity dips because you just burned your whole team. This executive interrupt thing is exactly that same category, is learn your team, work at your product people, ask them for, I almost want to say ask them for these stats so that you know when you're affecting or not, but just have a conversation. Hey, am I putting too much on the team? Have a one-on-one. Am I putting too much on the team? Am I pushing too hard? Let me know. Okay. The trade-off is me saying have a one-on-one and ask them is they may not. They may be like the development. Oh yeah, we got this. We're working on Sunday as well. No problem, guy. Everything's great. That might be the trade-off. Is they're not open to say how they really feel.
Yeah, I agree. And so first of all, they're not open, especially if they're outsourced to different parts of the world, because they're not. It's not in their culture to argue against having to work overtime. And I'm not talking about a few hours. I'm talking about substantial, significant overtime hours, right? So it's a double-edged sword here. Here's why I say that. When you have a team in Manila or India or wherever, and you ask them, you say, listen, leadership's really looking for this by this date, and it would be great if you can achieve that. Most of these team members don't work for your org. They work for some consulting org, and the culture there is, hey, do what the client says. Yep. And if they say, oh, you need to work extra 20 hours, do it. If it turns out to be 25, do it, but bill 20 anyway.
Yeah, right.
So they do it, right? I've seen this many, many times in my career. And these teams, to their credit, they do it. They burn the candle at both ends because they're not the ones that say, because we worked last night and I won't be at the daily stand-up
Move
today.
the hours around. Yeah.
So they burn the candle at both ends. So here's what happens long term or medium term is you meet to those demands that management's asking for. But long term what happens is it behooves this kind of expectation that management says, well, we just have to ask them. They'll just do it, right? So just ask them again. And then we ask them again. And we ask them again. What are they going to do? Just ask them. That's terrible. Because I actually got to the point where I connected with some of these people on a one-on-one basis. And I understand their motivation. That was a few years ago where it was long enough ago, let's just say, that they wanted to stay with their employer. They had prestigious, contracts or whatever.
Of course.
Fast forward today. That's not the case. Here, if you do that today, they're just going to say, no, I value my life more. And they'll be gone. And because they can get a job like that today.
Sure.
That wasn't the case, I want to say 8 years ago even. So people who are doing this, please be aware. You're rolling a dice here, right? If it lands in your favor, you can talk to your management and say, look what I got these people to do. I squeezed them hard and we made it.
Right.
Can I have my bonus now?
Right.
But if it goes the other way, it can be very, very bad because, you're going to start off again with a new team.
Yeah.
Right? So that is something that's reasonably new now. So be aware of that.
I would also be careful of listening for that disdain when it comes to, these offshore developers are totally bilking me of all. Like, you can hear that disdain pretty quickly to understand that. And if you should raise a flag to say, I think there's a problem here. Like, it doesn't sound like we're treating these employees with empathy and we're treating them like we want them to integrate as part of our culture. It sounds like we're treating them adversarially. Is that a real word? I don't really know. But right. His next, got to wring out them resources. I mean, his next, got to wring out them washcloths. His next point leads straight into what we were talking about, which is alignment with a broader strategy. Yeah. First of all, this implies that you have a strategy.
What a concept.
See our multiple, many of our previous podcasts on this one, but you have a strategy. Your product people know what that strategy is, and you're tied into it. Obviously, he's saying here in the article is like, do you need a product manager on an infrastructure only team? Well, if your team connects to strategy, then I think of saying like, well, we can have our tech lead. Our tech lead should understand strategy. Maybe they could sit in occasionally on a product meeting and talk about where their team and products could tie into the strategies. I feel like we've hit the first real black and white item that he should, like, honestly, if I wrote this article, I would lead with this one to say,
me too.
How is your team and the products that they provide, their platform team, right? So they provide the platform that everyone else builds on. How is your team and the platform they provide into the broader business strategies and in his article, global business strategies that my entire business is engaged in? I mean, that's first of all, and I will tell you again, as a product manager in this conversation, this is a full-time job answering just what his little 3 sentence?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is a full-time job. Somebody who just goes around to all the development teams and says, what are you about to do? What are you about to do? What are you about to do? We need to adjust our roadmap to make sure that we have bandwidth. We have the runway for you to take off because you keep building these bigger and bigger and bigger planes. So I have to keep building a bigger and bigger runway with more and more parking spots. That's basically what you're doing on a platform team. So how do you even know that you're doing that? You run around to these other teams and you're gathering information and you're making concessions and you're trying to align their priorities up while you align your team's priorities up. And quite honestly, I could end the podcast just talking about this one. Like, if nobody is sold by now that you need a product manager on your development team and it's not a part-time job to play the role. Sure, you're going to do this part-time? If you can do this part-time, congratulations. Exactly. You should have a podcast. Or you should come on this podcast. You should come on this podcast and help us because we don't know how to do this part-time.
So this is one of the things where people just say, I'm going to spin a coin and it doesn't matter where it lands. I'm just going to call it one side. The product is usually more customer focused than development is. But at the same time, product cannot deliver to the business, the customers, unless development delivers too. It's so difficult. The Romans had a concept here, right? The Romans are very, very successful. Alexander the Great, he was so successful at basically steamrolling so many countries. How do you think he did that? He did that with two things. One is he told his army where they're going, why they're going there, right? And the second thing he told his generals is, what's next? Once we get there, we're going to win. And once we win that, we're going to go to the other place and we're going to win. That was his thing. So the generals were always aware of not only why they're there, right? But where are they going next? Guys, this is the product roadmap.
Yeah.
Right? So without that, what they would have said is, we're going into this place where there's 8,000 of us. We're going through ravines and whatnot, and there's 30,000 of the enemy. What do you think the generals will tell their soldiers? There's 8,000 of us. There's 30,000 of them. Not even a fair game, right? So that didn't happen because the leader here, the product, right?
Yeah.
He said, we're going to get this. And here's how we're going to get this. Our strategy is different, right? We're going to do XYZ. There were many strategies that he deployed. And, major generals are now learning, or they have been learning from this. It goes back centuries, but they learn about things like the pincher movement. People learn about the tactics. My whole diatribe here is to say, your individual development team members do not just need to know what they need to do. If you stop in there, you're failing. They need to know why. And they need to know the what, the why, and then they will figure out the how.
Well, it's not just the individual team members. Like one of his points here is supporting multi-team initiatives. He says a big efforts require collaboration and shared priorities across several teams. And product managers on the teams do a lot of horse trading, which is a great term, by the way, horse trading,
lovely.
and joint business justification to get things done. Complex decision making, basically. And if that is done without the representation of the infrastructure team, there's a lot of assumptions that happen. And you and I both know it's very difficult to do accurate estimation built on assumptions. You kind of need to know, and if you're leaving this team, I guess piece of the equation. I don't know, but like if you're leaving this whole section out and just assuming, like, I don't know, that's like building your house on a mountain of sand. That's it doesn't make me feel good. It would make me feel better if someone had a handle on. I mean, you're already going into it with the military analogy of which we also talked about before, of what is the goal? Well, the goal is to build a cathedral.
Right.
That's the vision. We're going to end up building a cathedral. Well, I mean, how are we going to do that? I mean, I only got a couple bricks that I see in front of me. Yep. Don't pay attention to all the bricks. Pay attention to where we're going, and then make your goals tied into, building a giant cathedral.
Yes, and
hey,
no. Well, one of the things that yes, I agree. The bigger picture is often lacking, unfortunately, in large, complex, especially in matrix orgs, where people are in it for themselves. Right. This is where you say, well, if I do this, I'll get my bonus or promoted, whatever it is, or both. If you're doing that, great. However, your organization is not succeeding as an org. So you're sitting there going, yeah, that person that I used to deal with as a product owner is now the product manager or the lead product manager or whatever. Sure. They're just going up and up and up. But our customers are leaving us in droves, right? How do you reconcile that? And if you're not reconciling that, think about it. Right, because you're paid because your customers are paying you, and if they're not paying you, you're not paid. I think the biggest difficulty here is having that economic view. This is like going to sound terrible because those people that are following SAFE are going to, you're taking the economic view.
Oh no, I just gave this advice very recently to a team that was not ready to hear it, so it wasn't good advice because the team wasn't ready to hear it. But they heard it. I gave them the old Mike Miller. I said teams that do not have economic information, just like teams that don't have information about the platform or whatever, like they cannot make economic decisions. Teams that do not have economic information cannot make economic decisions.
Say that one more time. Listen carefully.
I'm going to say economic this time because I'm American. Yeah. If all your decisions are made from non-economic viewpoints, I mean, how many decisions can you make until you make the wrong decision based on economic information and conditions?
Well said. Milton would be proud.
I'm going to assume it's going to be very quickly that you're going to make a bad decision.
Absolutely.
And your bad decision is going to get called out by the people who directly make decisions and can shut you down with a snap of a finger. Like as opposed to all this quote horse trading that we were talking about before. No, the economic people in your company are going to be able to stop what you're doing.
Absolutely. Listen, it comes faster than a tsunami, right?
Sure
this is why we always say on this podcast, keep that resume update.
Oh, is that what we say? I thought we always say on the podcast, boop, like that. No, he wraps the article with something that you disagree with earlier, but I'm going to read the whole thing in context. So he says, development teams and their product managers solve adjacent but different problems. If a work stream is important enough to merit its own development team, then it's important enough to assign a product manager. Together, we solve for what needs doing and how to gracefully get it done.
It's hard to argue against the language here. In practice, what I've seen is, people are playing like they're not really treating, those people that are in the infrastructure side of things with the same relevance, I don't want to use the P word, prioritization, but the same importance, right? So that's the importance.
Yeah.
They're saying, well, look, the teams that developed it, it's done, right? We've tested it's good. So just put it out there. But the poor people that are putting it out there are faced with a dichotomy. And the dichotomy is this. First of all, you have to recognize there's only a few of them. Yeah. Because these people have specialist skill sets. I'm specifically talking about the DevOps guys. Sure. And so there's fewer number. And if you're a large-ish company, organization, that's probably a separate entity somewhere. So you have to still borrow their time, right? So you say to them, look, I want this thing to go into production by this date. And they go, yeah, thank you. But we have 15 things ahead of you. So you have to wait. and the product manager says to you, why can't you get it done? Again, I'm going back to the podcast, which is you're a scrum master, and the product person says, well, we're done, right? You say we're done. Yeah, we're done. Why can't we get into production? Because we're backed up on DevOps.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. So DevOps people say, yeah, listen, don't blame us. Give us more people. Yeah. You can't get more people because these are specialist skill sets. Yeah. So you go around full circle and you say, okay, what happens here? You have 15 things that need to go to production. Who is the loudest screaming voice here?
Yeah, but wouldn't the fact that you have a bunch of specialist skill sets on a team, wouldn't it be even more important for you to have a product manager so that those specialists don't get tied up in doing this other role part-time? The takeaway of his article is it's sort of a weak it's sort of a weak call to action. Yeah. Like the call to action I would put in here is the people that work on the platform team that and the funding that goes into the platform team and the funding that goes into features that rely on the platform team doing, like hitting all the marks, is so expensive that if you're going to skimp on one team, it should not be this platform team. This platform team should have a scrum master, product manager, potentially help for some people have product operations too, to help product managers. I don't know if you saw that. Their toolbox should be the most complicated full toolbox out of every development team, as opposed to what you normally see, which is these teams usually are kind of devoid of all these additional skill sets, again, probably because they're so expensive.
I couldn't agree more. However, the reality of the situation is this. I'll go back to what I said earlier, right? You don't have enough people with those DevOps skill sets. But all of these are anti-pattern. Here's what I mean by this. Why are you relying on an external team to deploy the fruits of your labor into production, right? So you go to a bakery. Just bring it right down to what people can relate to, because I like to do that.
I like donuts.
I like donuts too. So you go to a bakery, right? And you go, I want this. They go, it's freshly baked. Oh, that's why I come here. I like the freshly baked stuff. Yeah. They go, it's baked. It's just sitting on that tray over there. We'll be with you in about 40 minutes, maybe 50. When something can be picked up off of that stack of trays and be put into a bag, and we'll give it to you. And you're like, okay, you wait. By the time you get it, it ain't no longer warm. So the whole point of you going to the bakery to get something freshly baked and warm, it is already compromised, right? And this is exactly what happens with organizations that have this structure of DevOps teams. So what is the real solution? The real solution is perhaps not that palatable for most people, but it is still the real solution, which is empower somebody on your team to put things into production. Why not? After all, you empower them to create the thing to begin with, right? So empower them to say, when it's ready, sure, put the guardrails in place, right? UAT passed, UAT this and that, customer accepted, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Go through all of that. Then before you chuck it over the wall at this team that there's not enough people in and all of that stuff, and you wait, your team says, we got the skill sets to do this. Yeah. Now, as a team with your product people, you get together and say there are 5 things that we've done in this sprint. Do we put all 5 in production? Do we put 2? Which 2? Do we put 1? That's where you need to be, because when you put that into production, guess what? You've done it in 2 weeks. You've done it in a sprint instead of waiting for some external party, DevOps team to do this. What I've seen in my experience is the DevOps team is always under-resourced, they don't have enough people, and they're being hit by multiple angles, right? So senior stakeholders are going, hey, we have this customer screaming, put that stuff in, and they're going, well, that's only partially ready, but we got these other 15 things that are ready. They go, not care about that. And then another partner comes in, sponsor, and they go, yeah, okay, whatever, right? But I'm working with Ford or GM or whatever. Yeah. And if you put this feature in, we stand to gain XYZ. Mm-hmm. So I don't blame the team as such. I'm just saying bring them into the fold. Don't make them a separate, like a distant cousin. That is where the problem starts.
Yeah. Well, this has been a podcast.
Yeah, it has. And this is how you get things done gracefully.
I mean, I think like my takeaway from this podcast is it's even more like we had a few points, especially that one where we talked about earlier, especially the one we talked about with aligning up with the strategies. Like it's very difficult to do that when you don't have a product manager. I guess it's not impossible, but I mean, much like continually evolving your team and making sure that somebody's accountable for continuous improvement, I don't think it gets done without assigning it to a person. And I just don't. When I went into this article, I sort of agreed with it. Coming out of the other end of the article, I sort of even more agree with it now. Where it's just get a product person. You probably have somebody on your team already who has the chops to be able to do product management.
Sure.
Just promote them, change their role. Even if they're still doing code 25% of the time and they do product 75% of the time, that's better than nothing, right? They're not playing the role like they're playing around, like they're playing with some Legos or whatever. Like, they're not playing. That you're making strategy their full-time job. You're transitioning them into that role. Everyone knows they used to be a developer. That's fine. Yes. But the point of the article here is you probably should have a product manager, even on infrastructure teams. It's probably useful. It's probably helpful. You probably should do it. So if you learn nothing else from this podcast, just throw some money at a product manager and have them solve this stuff for you.
You're not looking for some perfection state, right?
That's right.
You're looking for something that works for you, and then just evolve that going forward.
That's right.
That's really the bottom line.
Start small and work your way up from there.
Absolutely. And let us know what you think of this topic and what are the topics you'd like us to talk about. And like and subscribe in the button below or whatever. Smash that button. But don't smash it because it's your laptop or desktop. Or
yes.
whatever.
And if you do, don't send us the bill.
Don't send us the bill.
We can't. There's no money.
No. That backlog is very deep.
It's true.